Hey, this is Brian Michael Bendis, the co-creator of Miles Morales, Riri Williams, Jessica Jones, and the Jinx World line, and you are listening to the Oblivion Bar Podcast.
Welcome to the Oblivion Bar Podcast with your host, Chris Hacker and Aaron Knowles.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 157 of the Oblivion Bar Podcast. I'm your warlord of the Citadel and keeper of the seats, Chris Hacker. And joining me this week is my lieutenant birthing physician, dirt expert, and former mayor of Gastown, my co-host and BFF, Aaron Knowles.
Aye, mate. Do you have it in you to make it epic?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Oblivion Bar Podcast. This week on the show, we are covering the next installment in the Mad Max saga, Furiosa. And Aaron, if I'm not mistaken, this was your most anticipated film of the year, correct?
Yes. As soon as I saw that golden obelisk of a statue during the teaser trailer that was Anya Taylor, and it just said Furiosa, Mad Max saga, I was sold. I was in for it. You know how much I love the Mad Max Fury Road movie. Fucking love it.
That's exactly my next question for you. I kind of wanted to know, just very quickly before we get into sort of everything else with the show, what is sort of your relationship to the Mad Max franchise, I guess you would call it? Because I think my love sort of started with Fury Road, of course, like most folks. And then I kind of backtracked into Mad Max and then the Thunderdome and all the other installments.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing that you need to remember about Mad Max, just in its entirety, is we don't need another hero.
Little Tina Turner.
Little Tina Turner. So growing up, I don't know exactly where it or when it began. I just remember Mad Max. So Mel Gibson's Mad Max, original, like, what do you call it? I guess you would be just like a kind of post-apocalyptic. He's like your vigilante of the Wasteland. I don't know. Maybe it's just the whole Wasteland thing. Maybe I want the world to die and I want, us to live in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And I don't know, like driving around muscle cars and motorcycles and just these crazy outfits,
just assless chaps and machine guns everywhere.
Assless chaps and tires for armor.
And what's the guitar guy you love? Doof Warrior?
The Doof Warrior.
Yeah.
I would be that guy. I don't know. It just is so iconic, and the series itself is just so far out there and wild, and it's just so cool.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's kind of the gunslinger sort of power fantasy, I guess you would say, where a man on the road by himself and nothing with him but his wit and his sawed-off shotgun, I guess you would say, and his two-headed lizard. But yeah, we'll get more into sort of the Mad Max, not only just Furiosa, that'll be the majority of our conversation, but it's sort of the Mad Max franchise as a whole. But before we get there, Aaron, let's talk about Patreon.
It feels good on the whole.
It does feel good on the whole.
What?
Why don't you just call it Operation Ass Cream, you ass?
I'm sorry, did you want some ice cream?
Yes, I'd love some chocolate ass cream.
Perhaps later.
Yeah, listen, you come to the Oblivion Bar for two things. You come for puns and you come for Austin Powers references, because that's what we do here.
And pee-pee poo-poo jokes.
Let's talk about how people can support the show. Patreon.com/Oblivion Bar Pod. For your support, you could have access to The Grid, which is our weekly bonus podcast, episode transcripts, early access to these episodes you're listening to right now, and a special shout out at the end of each Oblivion Bar episode Aaron will do here in just a bit. It is the best way to support the show. And kind of along with that, you also will get, actually, this is not on the Patreon. You get this for free, but the secret menu, which Aaron works very hard on, sort of our monthly newsletter that the Oblivion Bar puts out, not only sort of recapping what we had done the previous month, but also highlighting things that we either have upcoming or fun activities that we've sort of taken part of. Sometimes we'll do some behind the scenes stuff as well. That will all be available over on the secret menu. And again, that's over on Patreon, but it is free. But kind of along with that, you can do a 7-day free trial on Patreon if you want to kind of see what you can get over on Patreon. That's available as well. A lot of cool ways to support the show. And as Aaron and I always say, it is the best way to support the show. You just get a little bit more total stream of consciousness over on Patreon. Aaron, is there anything else we need to cover before we get into our news and notes? Brian K. Vaughan is coming on the show, right? That's something that we wanted to kind of talk about.
Yep.
that I don't really even know how to sort of summarize that thought. The fact that we were able to not only get in contact with the writer of Saga, Pride of Baghdad, Paper Girls, Runaways, all of the things. Truthfully, Aaron, my favorite writer of all time.
3 seasons of Lost.
3 seasons of Lost, absolutely. I mean, a lot of his properties have been converted into television shows, but I think most notably Saga is what he's mostly known for.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my favorite writers, if not my favorite writer of all time in comics, will be joining us on the show next month. That's a bucket list guest for me, Aaron. I know that you enjoy Saga and you love Lost, but there hasn't been a property that Brian has put out that I have not enjoyed. And it is such an honor because I don't know if people know this or not. He doesn't do very many interviews. So the fact that we even got in contact with him, incredible. The fact that he agreed to come on for a conversation to celebrate the return of Saga with issue 67 is incredible.
I am extremely happy for you. I'm extremely excited for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared of, you having to do your pant laundry after this interview.
A heavy load.
Of laundry. Thank you.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And no, it's gonna be a great time, and I'm so excited for. I feel like that honestly, if there was an interview where I just needed to let you just do it one-on-one, that's gonna be it.
Sure.
And
I think we should let the people know at home. I told Aaron that I would love for him to be there, and he is sacrificing himself as tribute to kind of, I'm sure you'll be there. Like you'll probably be in the background somewhere listening or what have you. But the fact that he's allowing me to sort of have a one-on-one with Brian, that means a lot. And I will do my best to make you and the listeners proud to have a great conversation with the man himself.
Yes, I love my best friend. I'll take care of him.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and get into our news and notes.
News and notes.
Our news and notes segment is sponsored by Omnibus, backed by some of the top publishers in the medium. It's really a growing list, so don't just take this for what it is. But Omnibus hosts an extensive back catalog from Image Comics, Boom Studios, Dark Horse, IDW Publishing, Ahoy Comics, Massive Publishing, Titan Vault, and many more. And again, like I was saying, it's growing. Every time we talk to Travis about Omnibus, he tells us the next publisher, and it's just getting bigger and better. So exciting. Breaking news, by the way, Omnibus is officially on Android. Download the Omnibus app on the App Store and the Google Play Store, or read it work on your desktop like Chris does. Don't tell his bosses. Make sure you follow them on all their socials at the Omnibus app. Omnibus, by fans, for fans. It's bitchin'. Okay, so our first bit of news and notes is pretty exciting, but also, I feel like Chris enjoyed the first season of The Last of Us more than I did, and I enjoyed it a lot, but it wasn't like the most exciting thing.
I disagree. It was incredible.
Yeah, exactly. He thought it was incredible, but cool news, and I happen to really like this actor, Jeffrey Wright, who's been just in a ton of stuff. I mean, I know he's been in The Walking Dead, I believe.
Most notably here recently, he was in American Fiction.
Yeah,
but he also was in what was the HBO series that everyone loved for like 2 seasons, where everyone's in the West. They're in the Wild West and they're all robots. What's it called? Westworld. There you go. That's where he kind of That's where he kind of. I mean, he's an actor before, obviously, but that's where he kind of gained his gravitas, I guess, as an actor.
Yes, I loved him in American Fiction. If you have not seen Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction, you are absolutely missing out. But the point is, Wright will take on the role of Isaac Dixon, is the leader of the Washington Liberation Front, and is described as a quietly powerful leader of a large militia group who sought liberty, but instead becomes mired in an endless war against a surprisingly resourceful enemy. Wright has also voiced Isaac in The Last of Us Part 2 video game, so it's very fitting.
That's very cool, yeah.
So Wright joins an already stacked cast that includes Caitlin Dever. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I think it might
be Dever, but I think probably either way is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, Dever as Abby, Isabella Merced as Dina or Dinah. Yeah. Young Mazzino.
Gina or Gina?
Gina or
Is
Gina?
It Gina or Gina?
Ariella Barr as Mel and Danny Ramirez as Manny.
It's a 40-year-old virgin reference for everybody, just in case you weren't tracking there.
Again, they're here for the pee-pee poop jokes.
Yeah, that's right.
This is my favorite edition. Catherine O'Hara, who
David.
love her in Schitt's Creek, but also as Mama Dietz in Beetlejuice, returning by the way in Beetlejuice.
Saw a trailer for that for Furiosa. Yeah.
Yep. And she'll also guest star in a secret role. Shh, don't tell anybody. Season 2 of The Last of Us is set to release in summer of 2025.
This is exciting. I think just based on the fact that Jeffrey Wright is joining the cast, incredible. Like that would have been big news by itself. Like you said, Catherine O'Hara joining the cast, incredible. But I want to give like a special shout out to a couple people. Caitlin Dever, again, however you want to say it, really loved her. Well, thank you. I really loved her in, there was a movie she was in a horror film on Hulu called No One Will Save You, sort of an alien trapped in a house movie that I think was kind of sort of criminally overlooked from last year. Really good.
I think that's on my watch list.
It's awesome. Definitely check it out. But also Booksmart from 2019. Aaron, did you ever get a chance to see that?
I don't think so.
So good. 2019.
I'm so behind on my movie list.
I mean, this is one that I think you had to sort of seek out a little bit. It stars both Dever and then Beanie Feldstein, who was most recently in the Drive Away Dolls movie, the new Coen Brothers film. Anyway, I like to describe it as sort of super bad in modern day. Like it's two friends in high school just trying to make it, just trying to live, right? And not really knowing what their place is in the world and sort of having to come to grips with what are they going to do after they graduate high school. It's incredible. It's so funny. And it's actually directed by Olivia Wilde as well. I think she got some acclaim for that as well. But anyway, also Isabella Mercant, who you may know from Madam Web. That's probably what you know her from. But also young Mazzino, who was in Beef over on Netflix. I don't know if you had a chance to see Beef. He also, I think he won an Emmy for that as well.
No, I need to see that. That's another thing I'm behind on. I wonder if his the senior is old Mazzino.
old Mazzino.
Yeah.
Where's Elder Mazzino?
Where's Elder Mazzino?
But also Danny Ramirez. So he's going to be the new Falcon. You remember Torres from Falcon and Winter Soldier? He's going to be in this, and he's also going to be in Captain America: Brave New World. You also may know him from Top Gun: Maverick. He was one of the recruits that was with Miles Teller and Glenn Powell. Regardless, I mean, I was excited for this anyway, but the fact that they keep announcing these incredible additions to the series, sign me up. I'm ready for it. And this is one of those things, again, as you said, summer of 2025. I will wait a long time for the next season of The Last of Us because that first season really blew me away. So
before we move on, I have a real quick question for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. As a Ron Swanson, because, Nick Offerman was in season 1 of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you how you felt about how would Ron Swanson survive in the zombie apocalypse?
Swimmingly. I mean, he's a libertarian, for God's sake. The guy has a small armory at his house. He's one of those guys that, like, remember in the show, he's like...
Lauren was supposed to do a paper on why government matters. This is what she wrote.
It doesn't. Well said.
Is this a joke?
Like he would absolutely kill it, pun intended, in the zombie apocalypse.
Okay.
Like he is built for that environment, right?
Yes, he could survive on his own for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
I have gold buried around.
And it's funny that his character in The Last of Us also survives, but is sort of the complete opposite of, well, not really, actually. I think he's very similar to Ron Swanson in a lot of ways, in terms of like very self-sufficient, kind of take care of his own, all the things. But anyway, let's move on to our next bit of news here. We have Greg Capullo teams up with Jonathan Hickman for a brand new Wolverine limited series called Revenge. So Capullo returns to Marvel after many years at DC Comics, and the legendary artist has finally revealed that he is working on Wolverine Revenge, which is a 5-issue limited series that sees him team up with none other than the iconic Jonathan Hickman. Now, here's the official synopsis or solicitation of Wolverine Revenge. Wolverine Revenge is 5 issues of pure, unadulterated Wolverine action just in time for the iconic character's 50th anniversary. If that's not enough, Revenge will be available as a special red band edition. Like the Blood Hunt event that's going on currently, Aaron, the Wolverine Revenge Red Band Edition will be polybagged for the protection of innocent eyes and include exclusive pages and elevated violence. Hickman said in an interview, obviously it's a privilege to work with a legend like Greg. Hickman added, when we first started talking about the project, our number one concern was taking the reader on a high-octane, no-hold-barred Wolverine story that has the proper celebration of both the character and Greg returning to Marvel. The bosses over at Marvel cut us loose, and the result is an absolutely wild book. Now, Aaron, I'll sort of ask you, because again, you like to sort of refer to yourself as the residential new reader. I know you're a comic book. I know you're a big Greg Capullo fan. I know you're a Wolverine fan. What's your temperature check on this limited series?
I'm curious because, I mean, along with Blood Hunt, like at my comic shop, they have the polybagged like Blood Hunt ones. And I don't know, like I applaud them for taking a step out of the norm and creating like an ultra violent, issue and having putting the work in for both young and old, making it kind of accessible yet inaccessible for each of the demographics this is aimed for. So is it interesting? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not the biggest Wolverine fan.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought you were. I thought you really liked Wolverine for some reason.
I'm lukewarm on him.
Sure.
If I were to say anything, like he's a cool character. I just, I don't really feel like a super like
you don't like especially love him.
Yeah. I don't especially love him. I do think it's funny. However, I've looked at multiple as I was preparing for the release of this upcoming secret menu for our Patreon, or I guess really anybody can sign up for the secret menu. I was looking at the variants for Wolverine Revenge. And it's funny how like they're all like with Wolverine and like a dinosaur, like they're and if it's like a T-Rex, he's like in the dinosaur's mouth, which is funny because Wolverine is like bite-sized.
You're right. Yeah, he's like extra small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a similar boat. I like Wolverine, obviously, but he's not someone that I especially love. I'm going to look really quickly at some of the variants here because you got me interested. It looks like they've got a David Nakayama cover, which I know you like Nakayama. You got a John Jang, Mark Brooks. It's a lot of the people we, the
usual suspects.
Absolutely. Art Germ. Like it's the normal folks that do this kind of book. And to kind of speak on what you're saying, the hyper violence of Wolverine makes sense. I get it. He can kind of live in a couple different worlds. I think Wolverine is one of the most flexible characters at Marvel. He truly can do a lot of things. And I love that Hickman and Capullo are teaming up for this. Again, the fact that Capullo has made the jump from DC over to Marvel is really exciting because he started his career over there in the X-Men universe, actually. So the fact that he's coming back, and I would imagine that knowing Greg Capullo from our work with CSA and just following his work, because again, as I've said before, go listen to our Scott Snyder interview from a couple of weeks ago. His run on Batman, The Court of Owls, his and Scott's run sort of got me into comics the way that I am now. And I would imagine that when he decided to make the jump from Marvel, when Marvel offered him the, sort of an exclusive deal, which I don't even know if it's exclusive or not. I would imagine it is. His sort of prerequisite was like, I want to do what I want to do. Don't try to put me on a fucking Squirrel Girl book. Don't try to put me on something that I don't care about. I want to work with the writer that I want to work with. And I want to write the story or I want to draw the story that I want to draw. And I would imagine that when they looked at Wolverine Revenge, Capullo was like, I'm trying to cut loose, pun intended. I want to be able to make this as hyper violent and as crazy as I want to. And he got his wish because Wolverine Revenge #1 will be at your local comic book shop on August 21st, 2024.
I think the only cover that I might pick up is apparently there's going to be a movie variant.
Oh.
And so I'll be on the lookout
with
for that
huge Jackman. Or Yakman?
Huge Yakman.
Huge Yakman on the cover. Okay, cool. Well, let's get into our last bit of news here, Aaron.
Alrighty, so last bit of news and notes. Godzilla X Kong director Adam Wingard will not return to helm the sequel. Ugh.
That's a bummer.
Owie.
I mean, kind of.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe. THR, reports that the parting of ways is described as amicable and stemming from timing issues, which is... It makes sense.
Well, we'll talk about here in just a moment the timing.
Wingard is on a lot. So it could be just that they need somebody to step in. But it's also said that the door remains open for him to return for future installments. Legendary recently hired Shang-Chi. Excuse me. I said that wrong.
Yeah. Remember, we've learned, Aaron. Shang.
We've done this. But we got to make sure we're...
It's hard to go back on 20 plus years of saying a name one way.
Yeah. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings scribe David Callahan to start working on a script for the next MonsterVerse installment. At the time of this recording, Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire is the highest grossing film of the 5 MonsterVerse movies so far. $522 motherfucking million.
$500 million
worldwide. $500 million. But Wingard has a few projects that he's currently working on, including what I'm excited about, Thundercats movie. This is going to sound really bad.
Do it. Let's hear it.
I used to say, we go to sexual harassment classes.
Sure, yeah.
And at the beginning, they were like, all right, what do you call men? What do you call women? What do you what's they just to get out of your system, say the things.
Yeah.
Just to get out of your system. And, and somebody we call them, sluts, or you call them this, or you call them what? And I'd be like, I call them Thundercats. And he'd be like, and everybody would be like, what the fuck are you talking
There's
about?
one guy
Aaron?
that laughed
Aaron
internally.
Reynolds?
They just didn't want
Yeah,
to.
there's one guy
They
that
wouldn't
laughed
admit
internally.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, Thundercats. I said, yeah. Ho! So,
thank you for going
anyways,
through with that. I got what you were
problem.
saying, and I think the listener may have, but I'm glad you finished it.
yeah, I wanted to explain it.
Yeah.
That's where I used to be as a young man,
Yeah.
mentally,
We've
and I've grown, I've matured. I no longer, I mean, yeah. There's also an adaptation of Metal Gear Solid that he's working on, as well as an A24 action horror film titled Onslaught, which my mind automatically goes to Onslaught from the X-Men.
Oh, sure.
Which will never. At some point, we're going to see an Onslaught in the movie.
Oh, 100%.
Maybe 110%. Maybe we'll see him in, Wolverine and Deadpool, which will likely most likely be his next film, which is that A24 action horror film. It has also been rumored that Wingard is being eyed to direct the next trilogy of Tom Holland's Spider-Man films.
So a lot is essentially what we're saying.
Yeah,
here. He has a lot going on for some reason. We liked both Godzilla vs. Kong and then Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. Again, go back to a couple weeks ago. We reviewed it here on the show. But I think our consensus of Wingard and his direction was less that it had less to do with his direction of the film, which are sparing at best. They're skeleton movies that just create opportunities for big lizard versus big monkey fight.
Yeah.
like
Big Liz versus Big Monk.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that he's getting all this attention to do all of these sort of, I would say IP driven titles. Would you agree? Like Thundercats, Metal Gear Solid, A24's, I think separate. I think he actually wrote that movie.
These are lobs.
Yeah. It's like already done projects that he has to sort of, what do they call that? Like they call him like a company man. He can come in, he can finish a project and it'll make money, right? He's not going to fuck it up by his vision, right?
He's a safe choice for films that aren't necessarily needing to deep dive.
Right. Exactly. Like they're, again, IP driven stories that will win you over with, again, the outward, marketing and sort of the live actionness of it all, which.
Yeah. Cause if you notice, like Thundercats was big castles, big action scenes, big vehicles. Okay. Godzilla, big creatures, big monsters, big Liz. Metal Gear Solid, like sneaky but big robots, big action.
Yeah.
It's going to be like he doesn't necessarily need to go in and create a Thomas Crown Affair level of depth, or like
the Peaky Blinders of Spider-Man movies.
The Peaky Blinders, Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
So I understand where it's coming from. They say parting ways, but more like, hey, we got a schedule to keep with Godzilla movies and Kong movies. We got a schedule to keep for the Monsterverse. So you go do what you got to do. The door is open for when you're ready to come back, but we're going to get somebody else because you're too busy.
Right.
Which that's it. I mean, it's not like the THR report. I feel like it's more of a clickbait type thing, because it's like saying like, oh, we're parting ways. No, they're not parting ways. They have schedules to keep, man.
Yeah. And again, especially with the IP stuff, like that's not some kind of art house film that you can sort of mull over and go over multiple scripts. They're needing these movies to get out quickly because the bigwigs, the studio suits are looking to make that dollar. Right. And I think Spider-Man is the greatest example of that. I would be very, very upset if they hired Wingard for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man, of course, is the most universal comic book character in the world. I mean, more so than Batman, Superman, and otherwise.
And being eyed is a loose term.
Sure. Like he's probably being looked at because his movies make money. I mean, look at the last couple Godzilla movies. Plus, apparently he's a hot commodity among IP driven films. So of course he's going to be looked at, but I would imagine they're going to get somebody with a little bit more of a singular vision to headline the next Tom Holland led Spider-Man movies. So that'll do it for our news and notes, everybody. Thank you again to Omnibus for sponsoring our news and notes segment. Let's get into our review of the Australian Wasteland Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Before we get there, though, let's take a quick break and we will be right back. Aaron, do you remember what it's like when we first started recording? If the world of podcasting was not hard enough to figure out, we also often experience issues with unreliable internet connections, dropped or lagging calls, or the limited recording times from the other online recording studios.
Absolutely, man. We often had to re-record or invest in backup recording alternatives to make sure our show was always top-notch. But that's a thing of the past, right?
That's absolutely right. Because here at the Oblivion Bar, a nerd culture podcast, we've officially switched over to Riverside.fm.
Riverside.fm is the easiest way to record podcasts and video interviews in studio quality from anywhere. Bad internet connections don't affect the recordings because the platform records audio and video locally on each participant's device. The audio is uncompressed and the video is up to 4K resolution.
Yeah, that's right. And they also just released a beta version of their new media board, which allows you to upload your own themes and transitions and include them in your recording on a separate track.
So check them out at riverside.fm and change the way you record your podcast. That's riverside.fm and tell them the Oblivion Bar sent you.
Main topic.
Alrighty, let's get into our review of Furiosa. Spoilers ahead. If you have not watched the next installment in the Mad Max saga, please pause this and go watch that on, honestly, the biggest screen that you can find. Like, go get a ticket to the biggest IMAX screen with a fun crowd and go see this movie.
Ready, steady, go!
That's right. Yeah. And Aaron, I'm going to pass the baton off to you. Let's talk about, again, most anticipated film of 2024. What are your initial thoughts?
Oh man, exciting.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with it. There was so many moments where I'm just like on the edge of my seat. I'm going to tell you, so like Furiosa gave me a lot of what I wanted. After watching Mad Max Fury Road again, it gave me a lot of the things that I wanted.
Okay. So I messaged you a couple days ago in reference to Furiosa, and I was also excited for this movie. I think it was on my list of most anticipated films of 2024. I think actually Fall Guy was the winner of that title, and I've seen Fall Guy. It's okay. It is just fine. Like it's one of those films that is like, just very quickly, since we didn't talk about it here on the show, Fall Guy, it's like fully leaning on Ryan Gosling and his charisma. Have you seen it yet? Have you seen Fall Guy?
No,
Okay.
where it is a to watch ASAP.
It's fun because of Ryan Gosling, and everything outside of it is stupid and silly. But anyway, Furiosa, I will say that I don't think I could have gone in this movie not expecting something similar to Fury Road. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And it's not something I've been mulling over. Is like, is it even fair to compare Furiosa to Fury Road? Because there's only one Fury Road. Like that is
fair to compare.
Is it fair to compare? That's a new segment here on the show. Is it fair to compare? Ah, ba 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 ba.
But
We have some
please
drums
don't
there.
stare.
Don't stare, because we're going to compare this. Anyway. But the point is, I don't know. I don't know if it's fair to compare these two films, because Fury Road is a perfect film. 5 out of 5. Like if we were reviewing movies in 2020, or was it 2014, I would have given Fury Road a 5 out of 5 David A. Weiners.
Believe it or not, I think I would also.
Right.
I think that would be a 5 David A. Weiner for me. I have yet to give one on this show.
I've given 2. Last week on the show, X-Men 97, I gave my second 5 out of 5. Go listen to that review with Botter. But this movie, I just feel like it's at an automatic disadvantage when you go into this movie thinking that you're going to get anything close to Fury Road, because it's not. Truthfully, I don't think it is.
Can I tell you a story?
Please.
So I walked into the theater. I was a little bit late, which does not normally happen. But I walked in, and not the credits, but the trailers were still rolling. Movie starts playing, and it's not Furiosa.
Oh, what is it?
Something called Terror.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
I think Terrors. It's got the kid. What's his face? From Spider-Man, the guy in the chair.
Oh, that's weird. I feel like that movie came out a long time ago. And you're talking about Jacob Batalon.
Yeah. So I don't like. It was like it started off, and it's just like I was like, okay, maybe this is another trailer, but no, it was like literally like intro credits, and they're like around a campfire. And everybody in the theater, like the people in New York, they got mad. They're like, this is not it. This is not the movie. It's the wrong movie. Some guy's like, what the hell is this? Everybody like, and then the guy comes in and
I think it was
shuffles
Tarot.
everybody to
Tarot was the name of the movie.
Tarot. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, shuffles everybody to the theater down the I guess what do you call it? The screening room down the corridor to restart Furiosa. So that was my experience walking in.
I had a couple yahoos below me. It was like at one point I wanted to like lean over, and this is like our new favorite segment where we talk about idiots in movie theaters, because it was like two couples. They came in late, you know, in a similar way. They came in like towards the end of the trailer watching, which again, can we talk about really quickly? I'm getting on a couple sidebars in a row here, but like why are there 12 trailers in front of these movies anymore? I love trailers. Don't get me wrong. But 12?
It's minimum 30 minutes. Minimum 30 minutes.
Literally.
Of trailers now.
Give me 5 good trailers and I'm good. Or like show them earlier. You know what I mean? Like show them instead of the movie shit. Like I go to AMC. Maria Menounos, I don't care about what she's talking about. Let's show a couple trailers, right?
But you care about Nicole Kidman.
I do care. Nicole Kidman, I've gone full circle with her sort of AMC intro.
Dazzling images on a huge silver screen. Sound that I can feel. Somehow, heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Our heroes feel like the best part of us. And stories feel perfect and powerful. Because here, they are. AMC Theaters. We make movies better.
As long as it's not the Regal one where it's like all the movie quotes.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, this is all you, Mark.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys.
But I had a couple yahoos right in front of me, and I wanted at one point to lean over and go, like, are you guys enjoying your first movie? How is it? Like, is it fun being here for the first time ever? Because they were like talking, and there was one woman that was like cracking up. And this movie had a couple funny moments, specifically Chris Hemsworth, but like, she was like belly laughing at certain moments, and they were getting up. And at one point towards the beginning, when they were going into Furiosa's sort of origin story as a young child, one of the women was Snapchatting the first 5 minutes of the movie. And had she not had her brightness all the way down to the lowest possible, I would have leaned over. I would have kicked her chair. I would have done something to like notify her to get stop. So
yeah,
all that to be said. And I want to ask you what your viewing experience was outside of going into the wrong movie. I saw this on an IMAX screen at AMC 17 here in Indy. It was the biggest screen, I guess technically the second biggest screen here in Indy behind the IMAX at the museum that I've seen a lot of movies at. I almost went to go see it at the IMAX, but they weren't showing Furiosa until Saturday. So I wouldn't have been able to see it in time to sort of review the movie. But great viewing experience, I'll say overall, in terms of like the scope and sort of like the best viewing experience possible. But to kind of bleed into my sort of initial thoughts is that to compare it to Fury Road is not great, but also this just didn't live up to a lot of what I wanted from this movie. Like, you go to the Mad Max Saga for practical effects, which there are some in this movie. I think before I kind of get into like my long list of things I don't like, which we can talk about throughout this review, I think it's important to note that all of my complaints come with caveats. Like, I wanted more practical. There is that. And we'll talk about one specific scene that is like very practical. But like, there's also there's a disturbing amount of green screen in this movie, to the point where I was like truly bummed out. And I think sort of keeping in line with the Mad Max of it all, Furiosa, Anya Taylor-Joy barely speaks in this movie. Very similar to Mad Max, but I think it sort of plays against character from the established character of Fury Road, where she talks quite often. Like, why are we changing up her character compared to who she is eventually in Fury Road? It's small complaints like that.
I have an answer for that, but
please go ahead.
Well, my answer for that specifically is because obviously growing up like in this world, she's an escapee. She's on the run. She's like hiding in plain sight. She cannot speak because obviously she's going to sound like a girl. She's going to sound weak. There's things like that. But also she becomes a Praetorian, the Praetorian Furiosa at the end of this movie, which then she obviously speaks more. Mm-hmm. So because she has that status, she's not going to be attacked. She's not going to be turned into a wife. She's not going to be turned into a milker, a breeder, whatever. So she can actually speak and do her job. Like, because of what she survived and her loyalty to Immortan Joe and his like cadre, she has earned their respect. So she's able to speak without being kind of like taken down a few notches. Like, she's above war boys, but below the family.
Sure. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess I guess it was sort of just a jarring difference because, again, just like you, I went into this movie watching Fury Road to prepare for Furiosa, and
I feel like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was it's just wildly different. And again, I'm still burning over the idea of trying to compare the two, because it'd be like comparing a Van Gogh to a Monet. Like, they're just wildly different. Mm-hmm. Or I guess a better comparison would be like comparing an early version of Van Gogh to a later version of Van Gogh. You're like mm-hmm. They're just different. And it's to compare the two would be to diminish the work that was put into Furiosa. So I'm very conflicted with this movie because there are elements that I really love, but it didn't hit the same way. It didn't hit the way that I want it to. And it obviously did not hit the same way that Fury Road did.
Yeah, I feel that, but we're getting slightly ahead of
Sure.
ourselves.
Let's get
because
into
we haven't
it.
talked about the summary, the budget. Like, let's get into that, and then we can hit some of those hot spots that we definitely want to criticisms of parts of this film.
Sure.
But thoroughly enjoyed it. But so the summary: snatched from the green place of many mothers, young Furiosa falls into the hands of a great biker horde, led by the warlord Dementus. Sweeping through the wasteland, they come across the Citadel, presided over by the Immortan Joe. As the two tyrants fight for dominance, Furiosa soon finds herself in a nonstop battle to make her way home.
And so in July of 2010, Miller announced plans to shoot Mad Max Fury Road back-to-back with a live-action prequel film titled Mad Max Furiosa. But during pre-production, it was decided to only shoot Fury Road. In November of 2017, Miller's production company actually filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers over unpaid salaries, which delayed the production of any additional entries in the franchise.
Wow.
I mean, shocker. Warner Brothers out here just doing the absolute fucking worst possible situation. Like, color me surprised here.
I guess that water tower is not filled with money.
Yeah, exactly.
So the film was originally scheduled to be released on June 23rd of 2023. So slightly behind.
Yeah.
But was delayed to May 2024 after rising COVID-19 cases in Australia caused production delays. Which, okay, that makes sense. And then according to Miller, Furiosa probably takes place after Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, 1985, but the Mad Max franchise has no strict chronology.
Yeah, I think that's widely known at this point, and I think folks who sort of fixate on the fact that Mad Max is different, not only in Fury Road and in the original trilogy, but also in the video games and some of the novels, it doesn't matter. Like, and they even kind of tackle this in this film, is that it's the legend, right? It's the story. This is a story being told and being passed down through time. So we're getting unreliable narrators. We're getting things lost to the ether of time. We see that very specifically with Chris Hemsworth, Dementus, where sort of his outcome and how he is eventually killed by Furiosa in the film is sort of left to speculation and is only apparently being told by the narrator of this film, who we'll get into here in just a bit.
One of the characters who is very Max-esque, which I really like that they had included this character, is almost following the representation of who Max or the legend of Max might be in the Wasteland.
Could very easily have been Max, and there's no way of knowing, right? Like, outside of the fact that in Fury Road, they don't know each other until down the road, obviously until they start.
Well, I feel like, again, it's like Max is almost, as I've said this before, and it's theorized in the Mad Max like history that it's a title. Mad Max is a title.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah.
Or a mantle almost.
Sure.
So you said budget was 168?
We haven't gotten to it, but yeah, 168, which is obviously the most expensive Mad Max film to date, and I think those will just continue to get more expensive. What are your thoughts on this budget in terms of like the way the film looked? Because again, with the budget of Fury Road being, I think it was 140 back in 2014, I guess adjusted for inflation would probably cost around the same amount of money. I still, again, and I'm going to keep harping on this, and maybe I shouldn't, but Fury Road just looks so much better than this movie, in my opinion.
Same. I think so. One thing that Mad Max and Furiosa had in common for me, I didn't give a fuck about the if it was CGI or not.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like the entire time I'm watching it, like I'm just like, I was immersed. Like Mad Max, every time I can sit down and I can watch it and I can think, yes, this is probably all CGI. But at the same time, I absolutely don't care what I'm looking at because it looks amazing. Same thing really fit with, Furiosa as well for me.
Yeah, I think it's just because, again, at no point during Fury Road do I ever think this is CGI, even though it very clearly, I mean, it is a very CGI heavy movie.
There's one time, they get trapped in the what do you call it? Quarry. It's like a quarry at the bullet farm.
Bullet farm, yeah.
Okay. The gate is shut and then they escape. And basically, there's like a scene where in order to get out of the pit, Dementus has to drive his like monster truck up this ridge, and it just looks like the truck just goes straight into like a CGI moment where it just kind of like ridiculously goes up out of the, and that was the only time I'm like, that looks like shit. That was like the one time for me.
I think the majority of the first scene with Furiosa's mother and them sort of escaping, or them chasing after the crew, the biker crew, to get to Furiosa, I think a lot of that looked pretty bad, unfortunately, until they got to the camp where Dementus is. But I think the whole chase up to that, And again, I feel like I have to keep sort of giving prerequisites to this. There are scenes that look good because there are obviously some practicals in this where like they're on top of a sand dune, right? But then like they'll go into a chase scene and it is very clearly green screen, right? And that kind of bummed me out. So let's get into the box office here. So Furiosa is projected currently to be around $40 million in its 4-day Memorial Day opening weekend. That's domestically. It is projected to gross around 40 to 45 million just outside the US, which tracks it to be almost identical to the opening weekend of Mad Max Fury Road back in 2015. I think I said 2014 earlier. It is a 2015 film. So currently it is looking to make around the same amount of money as Fury Road. My only hang up with that, I think, is that Fury Road gained somewhat of a voice of, it gained a garnering based on word of mouth. I'm not sure if this will garner that same thing.
It's got a negative word of mouth. I'm gonna cut you off and say, because like I had multiple people. I have another story to tell you, but I had to go into my comic shop, which is right next door to the theater I saw this in, and I told my buddy John, and he was like, "Oh, you're gonna go see Furiosa? You might as well just see Garfield."
I don't believe all that. That's hyperbole right there. It's definitely not. I watched Garfield a couple days ago, and it's not great. But this movie, and again, like this movie is. I probably should have said this at the top. It is a technical marvel for anyone to accomplish this. Any other director, and what this kind of bleeds into the director of this film, which is George Miller. One of the greatest filmmakers of all time, maybe possibly the greatest action director. It's like him and James Cameron, maybe, of all time. If anybody else, if there's just insert another name instead of George Miller into this film, and this is their best film, right? But I think I just expected George Miller, and maybe that's not fair. Again, I keep going back to it, but maybe it's not fair for me to expect so much of this 79-year-old man to continue to make film at the level that he has made it over a long career. But George Miller, again, director of this, it came out in 2017 that he and co-writer Nico Lathoris have finished 2 additional post-Fury Road scripts for the Mad Max series. Tom Hardy has remained committed to the next sequel, and it is currently titled Mad Max The Wasteland. And again, as I just said, George Miller is 79 at the time of this recording. So again, I say all that to say that are we starting, again, not to make a pun here, but are we starting to see the wheels sort of fall off for George Miller and his directing, because his previous film that came out before Furiosa was 3,000 Years of Longing, which he wrote, directed, and produced, was not well received. People did not like it whatsoever. So I'm curious if this was any other film outside of Furiosa, would George Miller still be able to sort of perform at the same level?
Let's talk about this. Okay, let's just real quickly go over his filmography.
It is wild. Please, go down the list, because it is just a mix mash of craziness.
Okay, so just wave tops again. We're going to talk. So 1979, Mad Max. 1981, Mad Max 2. 1983, Twilight Zone the movie. Okay, so I'm gonna add in a little banger or bomb. Banger or bomb.
Banger bomb.
Okay.
Every song I download has to pass a series of rigorous tests to answer one simple question. Is it a banger?
Okay,
so 2 bangers.
Mad Max, banger. Mad Max 2, banger. Twilight Zone the movie, banger. Beyond Thunderdome, banger. Witches of Eastwick, kind of a banger.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe that's the one with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And like some of the
Academy Award nominated.
Females.
Yeah, for best original screenplay.
Lorenzo's Oil. Never saw it, so I can't tell you.
Yep. Same.
Babe.
Banger.
Banger.
Banger. Yes, but what?
Yeah, exactly. 40,000 Years of Dreaming. Never. No, I don't know. So
not familiar.
Pig in the City. Bomb.
Bing bong.
I don't think that one did really well.
I don't think it did either.
Maybe it did.
Yeah.
But Happy Feet. Banger. Happy Feet 2? I don't know. I'd say bomb.
Bing bong.
It was obviously not as great as nothing's good. Happy Feet set in motion environmental fucking work.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Mad Max Fury Road. Banger. 3,000 Years of Longing. Bomb.
Bing bong.
Furiosa. TBD.
I would say banger still. Like personally, I'm leaning towards banger myself. But you
would.
Banger, I hardly know her. But that is such a weird. We go from Mad Max to sort of art house creator-owned storytelling. Babe? Question mark.
Yeah.
Happy Feet? Double question mark. Back to Mad Max. It's just a weird winding road for George Miller.
Man,
but
living his best director life.
I respect it.
Yeah.
Before Fury Road swept the 2016 Academy Awards, winning 6 of 10 nominations, Miller had only won 1 Academy Award for, drumroll please, 2006 Happy Feet.
Exactly.
Miller has been nominated for 5 other Academy Awards. Best Original Screenplay for 1992's Lorenzo's Oil, Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay for 1995's Babe, and then Best Picture and Best Director for Fury Road in 2015. So
fucking wild.
Yeah, insanity. And why don't you talk about the composer here? Because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you thought this movie felt and sort of sounded.
So Tom Holkenborg. Holkenborg is a disciple of the Church of Hans Zimmer. And his company Remote Control Productions, and has worked on movies like, brace yourself.
Yep.
Mad Max Fury Road, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Deadpool, Tomb Raider, Alita Battle Angel, Terminator Dark Fate, Sonic the Hedgehog. Again, let's go down the list. Banger or bomb? Mad Max
Let's
Fury
play our
Road.
favorite game called Banger or Bomb.
Banger bomb. Mad Max Fury Road.
Banger.
Zack Snyder's Justice League. Music.
Yeah, I'll say music is a banger. Yeah, music is a banger. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Deadpool. Banger. Tomb Raider. Banger.
I haven't seen it. It's a banger?
Thrice.
Oh, okay. Thrice.
No, I mean it's kind of a terrible movie, but it's it's Angelina Jolie, man.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Alita Battle Angel. I'd say that one was pretty.
I'd say banger.
Yeah, I mean it's still got some following behind it for a sequel.
Yep,
so we shall see. Terminator Dark Fate. Bomb.
Bing bong.
Yep. Sonic the Hedgehog and its sequels.
Banger. Well, we don't know the third one, but probably banger.
Probably banger.
Yeah.
So Hulkenberg was asked to remix Elvis Presley's 1968 single, A Little Less Conversation. For a 2002.
If you grew up in the 2000s, you know what song we're talking about.
Line, Little Less Conversation. Yeah. So for a 2002 Nike World Cup commercial titled Secret Tournament, the occasion marked the first time Presley's estate had granted permission for any of Presley's material to be remixed. The song reached #1 in 24 countries, including the United Kingdom, Japan, Australia, and Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, if you grew up in the internet, sort of the AOL internet era of the 2000s, you know exactly. It's been used many, many times, both in film and television. So the runtime, 2 hours and 28 minutes. So just under 2.5 hours, which is of course the longest Mad Max installment. Aaron, did you feel that while watching the movie? Did you feel like this was the longest Mad Max film?
No, honestly didn't.
I think I sort of felt it there at the end. I think this kind of is a sort of a nice way to bring in sort of that finale a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about that finale where Furiosa finally gets her hands on Dementus. And I felt like
that was a little draggy.
Right? Like just kind of, it turned into, at first it was sort of this headstrong, dirty, grainy action film leading up to the end. And then it became sort of a 1990s Shakespearean adaptation.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. That's a perfect metaphor.
They're like yelling poetics at each other. I didn't like what they were saying, and I enjoyed the sort of the through line, but the delivery I just didn't love.
Real quick, I gotta ask this: do you remember like the part where like he wakes up, his water bottle slashed, the tire's gone, and he sees somebody in the sand?
Mm-hmm.
Was that Furiosa, or was that like supposed to be like a ghost?
I would say that's Furiosa. Yeah, I would say that was just her sort of like looming over him, sort of playing with her food a little bit in a way.
Yeah. Okay, just making sure.
Let's get in the cast, Aaron. It's a big one. There's a lot of folks and a lot of names you're going to recognize.
Okay, Anya Taylor-Joy, Furiosa, Lila Brown as a child teenager Furiosa, Chris Hemsworth as Dr. Dementus, warlord leader of the biker horde, Tom Burke as Praetorian Jack, commander of the Citadel's first war rig, Lacey Holm as Immortan Joe, warlord leader of the Citadel and enemy of the biker horde. Holme also portrays Rizdale Pell, Dementus' lieutenant.
That's the guy with the one eye.
Yep. George Shevstov as the history man, an expert in history, science, and technology who serves Dementus, also the film's narrator. He's basically covered in like tattoos, written, and like, his clothing, everything. He's just a writer. Mm-hmm. John Howard as the people eater, Joe's advisor and military strategist, and the future ruler of Gastown.
That's the guy with the thing over his nose, the gold thing over his nose. Yep.
Yeah.
With the weird foot.
And really bad. I think that he has like really bad diabetes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Angus Sampson as the organic mechanic.
I love
that guy. Dementus' and later Joe's personal physician. Nathan Jones as Rictus Erectus, Joe's muscular but dim-witted son. I'm not gonna lie, this next one I audibly laughed stupidly loud. Josh Hellman as Scrotus,
because
he looks like just a ball sack.
Yep.
They might as well called him like laser face or something.
Yep.
A razor face. Charlie Frazier as Mary Jabasa, Furiosa's mother. Elsa Pataki as Mr. Norton, a deformed survivor who joins the biker horde.
I'll be honest, I didn't make that connection. So Mr. Norton obviously has that weird sort of like upper lip missing throughout the film, and is sort of demented. But that's the person that Furiosa's mother. At one point, Furiosa is stolen, right, by the biker team, and then Furiosa's mother goes after. At one point, she has a partner with her, and that partner is Elsa, Mr. Norton, essentially.
Oh,
so whenever when they eventually find the green place, they apparently abduct Mr. Norton and sort of inherit him onto Dementus' team. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Anya Taylor-Joy revealed that once the film was completed, she flew home to Los Angeles. The same day she arrived, she got a call from Denis Villeneuve, asked if she wanted to fly to Namibia for a secret cameo as Alia Atreides in Dune Part 2. So mere moments after, concluding this film, she hops on a flight and goes and films her cameo in Dune Part 2. So in March of 2024, it was revealed that Lachie Holme would portray a younger Immortan Joe in the film, taking the role over for the late Hugh Keys-Byrne, who portrayed Joe in Fury Road and passed away in 2020. Just like Keys-Byrne in the original 1979 film playing Toe Cutter, Hume plays a eyeless Rizdel Pell in Furiosa, who again is the lieutenant of Immortan Joe.
When casting Furiosa, Miller sought to cast a younger actor for the role rather than using de-aging technology for Charlize Theron. Theron admitted that the decision was a little heartbreaking for sure, but understood Miller's rationale. Edgar Wright, the director of Last Night in Soho, told Miller to do yourself a favor and jump at this opportunity to work with her. So I'm pretty sure there's like that one scene where she walks up and she's like, I need wheels, or like I need a vehicle. I feel like they used Charlize Theron's voice in that one.
It sounded
scene.
like it. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree. It sounds exactly like her.
Yahya Abdul Mateen, Aquaman Watchmen TV series, was slated to play Praetorian Jack, but had to drop out last minute for a scheduling conflict. Again, that would have really changed the character for me had they put Yahya in that role. And then Tom Hardy's stunt double from both Fury Road and The Revenant, Jacob Tamuri, appears briefly as Max Rockatansky. Tamuri is also the stunt sequence coordinator of the film. That's pretty cool.
What was your reaction when you saw Max sort of overlooking Furiosa in that moment there in the film?
I was like, I see it. That's interesting.
Yep.
Like, because obviously he was in the area, and had to be kind of like into that because it had to kind of like tie in the timeline that he had to be in the area during that period.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. In terms of the cast, I thought the true standout was Chris Hemsworth as Dementus. Like, he is vile and he is hilarious. Maybe one of the best villains in the Mad Max saga currently. I'd say he's up there with Immortan Joe now officially.
Yes.
And I will say it was like a very welcome sort of. I wasn't sure that Immortan Joe and sort of the Citadel crew were and the War Boys and all that was going to play such a big role in this film. I was like purposefully staying away from that sort of spoilers and whatnot. But it was a very welcome surprise to know that he was such an integral part and to kind of show like the progression of how we got to Furiosa being under sort of the tutelage of Immortan Joe and how, and I think this is sort of a larger compliment towards the Mad Max saga is that there are no good or bad people. There are good people who do bad things and there are bad people who do good things. Like Dementus, at one point we see him save Furiosa from some of the Immortan Joe folks there towards the beginning of the film when he tries to sort of infiltrate the Citadel. In a very similar way, Immortan Joe notices that Furiosa is not the child of Dementus and and I think it's sort of for selfish reasons, but he decides to save Furiosa in that sense from Dementus in that moment.
Exactly. There's and that's what I was talking about earlier. Like Furiosa gave me a lot more of the Mad Max background or Fury Road background that I really wanted. Didn't give me everything. Didn't give me Dufoyer's background.
We do see
visually,
him. We see him for a moment,
but we do see him, and I learned off from the movie previously to seeing Furiosa what his backstory is from Miller himself. But the things that I wanted to see the Bullet Farm.
Yeah,
we saw the Bullet Farm. I wanted to see more of Gastown. We saw Gastown. I wanted to see the kind of like underbelly and the inner workings of the Citadel, which we did. And exactly what you said, like during Fury Road, when we look at Immortan Joe and him giving water to his people, we think that he's just kind of like satiating and trying to like lure them to be loyal to him. But he doesn't need those people, which we find out in this. Like, there's no reason for him to need these people to be loyal, which is interesting because we actually see them a little bit more up close this time, and they're crazy, they're cannibals, they're eating each other, they kidnap Anya Taylor-Joy and almost like we'll make it peaceful for you, like we see the crazy aspect of it. We don't just see the fact that they are people under the thumb of Immortan Joe, which they're not. And the war boys, we see the level of loyalty that he's raised in his war boy army and how dedicated they are to him. So like I really got a lot of the aspects of the Citadel that I wanted to see, and these other fortresses of the Wasteland. So I absolutely love that. We also see the decline of Dementus. And we see him as this ultimate leader, but at the same time, it's not really like he's trying to build what is like, he is a warlord, but at the same time, he's not like a controlling warlord. He's got like this nomadic tribe of motorcyclists. And I got to throw it out there. I love the fact that he has this motorcycle chariot.
yeah, exactly.
That's just like the most ridiculous thing ever.
Keeping in line with just the absolute ridiculousness of all of these vehicles and all of this.
Exactly.
Like the engineering that has to go into some of this stuff is incredible.
The evolution of the vehicles of this, like the Octo guy, and his like squid spinning parachute, like the fact that he was on a motorcycle with like machine guns on the front of it and it flies and he can still ride it as a motorcycle was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then the war rig as well, like all that stuff. Like what was it called? What was the thing called on the back of it?
Oh, I don't know. The spinning yep.
Bobby knocker. Are we doing the Bobby knocker now?
I will say that, like, kind of speaking on both Immortan Joe and Dementus, what I find really interesting, and I think what the film does really well, is that it adds context to why these two folks are leading. I think for Immortan Joe, to kind of speak of what you're saying with like the people within the Citadel, the sort of the cannibals and all those folks that are down there on the bottom part of the mountains, I think he reveres being revered. Like, I think he wants to be worshipped in a way. And I think as long as people know that he's in charge, he is willing to do what he needs to do in order to continue his lineage. Like, I think there's a very specific goal with him, which is that he wants to sort of Genghis Khan his way through history and make sure that whatever sort of succeeds in terms of humanity going into the future has him tied to the core of it. Like, he is like the root of the next wave of humanity, right?
But he's also doing it in a way that's really interesting because, like, again, you see the two styles of leadership. You see Immortan Joe, who is very much class system. He's got his family up on the top, close to the green, having the water, access to the water. Then he has the war boys, which obviously are like, he treats them well. He gives them like a purpose. Like they come to him because they almost revere him as a god.
His radical warriors,
their way into Valhalla, where again, you have Dementus, and like he gives a guy an order, and like, but they're following his like mid-level guy. So like he's not really above them. He's trying to maintain like, hey, like I'm your leader, but I'm also at the same level, which is not necessarily work. It's like you can't be a leader while having friends.
Right. Well, and I think it shows the power and sort of the strength of charisma in this world, where like if you have the ability to get people to follow you, you can take over an entire nation.
Yeah, but I would be a Dementus because I would fuck it up.
I think I would just do a Mad Max thing and just go off on my own, truthfully. Or I would be like a Praetorial Jack. Like I would know my role. I would do it to stay alive. I would make sure that I was good at that thing, and then I would eventually find my out when I eventually got there.
Speaking of Praetorian Jack, I want to say that I love the fact that this movie did not feel the need to put in a romantic subplot.
It's sort of heavily hinted, but it's not outrightly said.
It's like inferred, but also not necessary to the storyline.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's obviously like there's love there, there's a relationship, but it could also just be like mentor to mentee. It could be like, like again, like coach to teacher student. We don't really ever see that. But again, it's not necessary. You can take it how you want it. But the fact is, like, he looked after her, he made her, like, he built her into what she is. And again, I think that's also perhaps why she like kind of took a shine, but she also kind of kept her distance from Max, because he almost it like kind of put a link there. He reminded her of Jack.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I think that speaks to how Furiosa sort of enhances, if nothing else, it enhances the viewing experience of Fury Road. Like a movie that is already incredible and is already near perfect. You could watch this film, in a world of prequels where a lot of times you have to watch the prequels post the movie that it's prequeling. You could watch this movie pre Fury Road, go right into Fury Road, and it all sort of through line makes sense, and you don't have to know anything in Furiosa to understand the dynamics of everyone. It just sort of enhances everything in Fury Road.
Yeah, I want to speak on Anya Taylor-Joy's acting in this movie, though.
Sure.
And I want to say that I think that she did a really good job being kind of like a smaller, frail like character, and really like portraying like quiet, timid, angry, like all this stuff. Like she does
a lot with her eyes.
She does a lot. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's acting with her eyes.
If there's an actor that can play with her, that can act with her eyes,
yes,
it is Anya Taylor-Joy, those giant eyes that she has.
Yes. The one thing that was the stupidest thing though that I did see was the fucking
her
little like arm, like her little snipper arm that she used to cut the chains.
Yeah.
Like that was so unnecessary.
Yeah, I see what you're going for, George. I get it. Like I like the swing, but doesn't work. Doesn't really play, my friend. But
it was so stupid.
Let's get into our fun facts here. Unless Aaron, do you have anything else you want to sort of talk about with the movie in terms of are there any scenes that you really loved, or are there anything you want to cover before we get into fun facts?
I think there's only a couple things that I would put out there. It's like I didn't really like the chapter titles.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah.
I don't think like this that made it feel almost Quentin like Tarantino-ish.
Sure.
I didn't really feel like, I understand like they wanted to kind of like break up the movie, and like kind of like those are kind of time jump.
I think that's exactly what the purpose was to sort of showcase that there's a time jump here. Even though Anya Taylor-Joy looks the same in part 4, there's a difference. Like part 5 is further in the future somewhere.
I think that might have been like my only gripe. Again, kind of like what you were stating earlier about like the ending part where she's like playing with her food when she's like you said, almost Shakespearean, like back and forth with Dementus. Like that was really the only thing that kind of like took me out of the experience, because I'm like, like I don't really need this. Like kill him.
Well,
you
Aaron,
know,
do you have it in you to make it epic? Is what I want to know.
This is true.
That's a great line. I'll be honest with you. Through all that, I'm like, fucking hell yeah.
I think it was a great way to give a little bit of context to Dementus and his character.
Yeah. Sort of shows his rationale as to why he does what he does. He knows that he's a bad dude, and yet he sort of rationalizes it in his head, because he knows that if he doesn't lead and if he doesn't rule with an iron fist, even though he is bad at it, that someone worse will come along and do a far worse job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, similar. I mean, I think overall, again, we'll get into our final thoughts here in just a moment. I think that the finale was, I'm conflicted. I think if I have an overall feeling on this movie, I think confliction is sort of just the way that I feel overall. Like there are parts of the movie where I'm like, only George Miller could do that. Only the Mad Max saga could do what it just did. That is top tier action. And then there are other scenes where I'm like, man. And again, I know art is hard. Filmmaking is hard. I get it. But like, if anyone can do it, if anyone should do it, it should be George Miller is carrying that torch. And I just feel like he may have stopped right before the finish line on this one. So let's get into our fun facts here. So Anya Taylor-Joy only had about 30 lines of dialogue in this film. Speaking to the New York Times, Taylor-Joy said that she would often spend months on set without having spoken one line, explaining, "I've never been more alone while making a film. I don't want to go into it that deep, but everything I thought was going to be easy was hard." So, and again, that sort of aligns with the sort of the leading Mad Max figure in all these films, is that, Furiosa, as we said earlier, that Aaron, you had a great point with, has very little dialogue and has to say a lot with their actions and has to say a lot with their eyes. Again, Tom Hardy does an incredible job with that as Max in Fury Road, and Mel Gibson as well in the previous, set of films. So the 15-minute action sequence in the film is known during production as the Stairway to Nowhere. The sequence marks a turning point for Furiosa. It took 78 days to shoot and close to 200 people working on it daily to succeed. So, of course, that is where Pretorial Jack and Furiosa team up to go to Gastown for the first time, and they're attacked by all of those Dementors? I don't know what you would even call them. Like they're the ones flying around on, parachutes and such.
paragliders and such.
Yeah.
I would say they're like Dementus' troop, but Dementus' troops, I believe. So
Well, I think they're part of the Dementus crew that he inherits from that crew that's in all black. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy doesn't have a driver's license despite learning how to do a J-turn on her first day of stunt school. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I saw that she had learned to drive while on this role.
Yep.
So this movie features both Chris Hemsworth and Elsa Pataki. They are married in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Pataki, you may know as the girlfriend to Vin Diesel or Dom in the Fast and Furious movie. She's the cop that he dates while Letty is mind controlled.
Really?
Yeah. Did you not know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. In the last part of the movie, Furiosa is offered a beaten up car by a peculiar character. This is Chum Bucket, who made his first appearance in the 2015 video game Mad Max. Anya Taylor-Joy wanted to shave her head like Charlize Theron did for Fury Road, but her modeling contracts required her to keep her hair long. Furthermore, George Miller himself felt that Anya's hairstyle was far too iconic to shave it.
Yeah, so Chris Hemsworth previously auditioned for Max Rakatansky in Mad Max Fury Road, but lost the role to Tom Hardy, obviously. And at the 2023 Cannes Film Festival, the film received a 7-minute standing ovation.
Okay, I got to say something about this real quick.
Please,
I
know what you're going to say,
something.
and I agree. Please, go ahead.
I keep hearing stuff about 7 minutes, 7.5 minute, 8 minute, like standing ovations coming out of Cannes.
Mm-hmm. Why?
Like, why? Like,
why do they keep doing this?
Yeah, I mean, maybe 7 minutes like means something.
I think
but,
they did the same thing for Metropolis with Francis Ford Coppola.
Is it Megalopolis?
Megalopolis, yeah, excuse me.
Yeah. So it's like, I feel like they're like, you know how if everybody gets an award, no award special?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's my thought.
Yep. Yeah. Alrighty, let's get into our final thoughts here, Aaron. What are your final thoughts on Furiosa, a Mad Max saga?
Again, I really, really, really enjoyed it. I had a fun time with it. I was really immersed from the first step.
Mm-hmm.
I want more. I still want more. Like, I want more of this green place now. I want more Max. I want more Tom Hardy as Max. Even, I want more lore. This movie, again, kind of fed a couple of little hungry little beasts that were in my brain about like wanting to know more about, again, the different citadels and the fortresses and the characters. Like, I still really want to know what's going on with Immortan Joe and that like breather on his neck, like in his face mask. Like, I want to know where that comes from. Maybe we'll get an Immortan Joe like storyline at one point. That would be exciting. So for me, this was really fun. I do really like what you said about the ending and how it kind of needed to be epic, and she was paying attention. Like, she was clearly watching Dementus the entire time she was in his care, and clearly learned some things, because that's what he was about. He was about the flair. He was about the make it epic.
Yeah.
He really set an example for his motorcycle crew, and really like put a message out there. So I see where it plays in, and I think, again, this is another one of those times where the conversation that you and I have definitely like puts in some more information, puts some things into perspective for me. So I appreciate that. I'll let you give your thoughts, and then we can give our ratings, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as I said earlier, confliction is sort of my central pillar of this film. The central view of this film is that there's a lot here to love. Again, it adds context, and it gives sort of weight to a lot of the things that happen in Fury Road and sort of in the Mad Max franchise. Anya Taylor-Joy is great in the role. I really liked her as Furiosa. I was, again, slightly nervous, like most folks were, in terms of sort of her portraying this character other than Charlize Theron, who did an incredible job in Fury Road. Chris Hemsworth, again, probably the greatest villain in the Mad Max franchise, up there with Immortan Joe. A lot of the practicals, when they were doing practicals, they were incredible. This is a marvel in terms of action for any other director that's not George Miller. But I think that bleeds into sort of my cons, which is that just a lot of green screen, man. And I'm okay with green screen if it bleeds together. Like, it should enhance a scene. It should not overtake a scene. And the moment it becomes noticeable, it is jarring. And I really don't like that. And I think all of that aside, I think overall I had a really, really good time in this movie. I said it at the beginning of the review, and I stand by it. I don't know if it's appropriate to compare Fury Road to this, even though they are so intrinsically tied to each other. Can we make a definitive decision right now, Aaron? Is it appropriate to compare the two? Should we compare Furiosa to Fury Road? No. Even though they are in direct connection to each other.
You know what? Yes, because same director,
same storyline.
So yeah,
same characters.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the same. Actually, I don't think I have it here in the transcript, but a lot of the crew came back for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, and that's why I've been so conflicted, is that I think it's okay to compare it because it's the same crew. It's the same folks that worked on that incredible movie that came out in 2015. So that's where my hangup is that it just feels like a slight downgrade from Fury Road. So let's go ahead and rate this thing out of 5 David A. Weiners. Of course, David A. Weiner is our favorite documentarian, Lord and Savior. We've had him on the show many times. Aaron, do you want to give your rating first? Do you want me to give my rating first?
I will give mine first.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Okay. That's pretty high, everybody. For Aaron, that's a good rating. 4.5.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give, I've been really close, man. Like it's been burning in me since I left the theater. I left the theater at a 3.5. I came home and I watched some people that I respected. I listened to their thoughts and everyone loved it outside of me. So I was like, maybe it's a 4. Cause like, again, some of the marvels that that George Miller and company accomplished in this movie, and Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy. Is it a 4? It's not a 4.5 for me. I'm going to give Furiosa a 4 out of 5 David A. Weiners. I think it is worthy of that. I think it is a slight downgrade, but again, Fury Road is a 5 out of 5. So what's a slight downgrade from 5 out of 5? I'll say a 4. I think it's in line with some of the best films that's come out this year, but it's just not quite there. I think I have it behind like Dune Part 2. I have it behind, I saw the TV Glow, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Spoilers. I have it behind Civil War over at A24. And I have it behind Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I think it's at number 5 for me in terms of the overall year. What about you in terms of what you've seen in 2025? Because it is your most anticipated film of the year. Is it?
Yes.
Is it the best one thus far?
It might be.
Better than Dune Part 2?
No.
Okay.
Is it close? Dune Part 2 is definitely like number 1 thus far this year.
Yeah.
When did we watch -0?
That was in 2023.
Okay, so never mind. So yes, 2024 for Dune Part 2. This will be like probably a close second to that one.
Okay, I respect that. And then just briefly before we get into Aaron's Arcade, could you rattle off, the Mad Max saga off the top of your head where it ranks in terms of all of that?
Fury Road is number 1 for me.
Okay.
So number 1, Mad Max, Fury Road. I'm gonna go with Furiosa next.
Okay.
And then just pretty much go slightly back in time. So Fury Road, Furiosa, Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Max 2, Mad Max 1.
Okay. I think mine is I'm going to go backwards. So at that's confusing. All right. I'll just go from the top like you did. I'm going to go Fury Road is number 1. We'll do Mad Max 2 is number 2. Furiosa is number 3. Beyond Thunderdome is 4. And then Mad Max is number 5, which is no damnation to Mad Max. It is a classic action film. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a marvel for when it came out in 79. But I think that it's like the Evil Dead franchise. Like, there are no bad Evil Dead entries. It's just that some are better than others.
Exactly.
So, alrighty, well, that'll do it for our review of Furiosa. Hopefully you go out and see it if you haven't already. For some reason, if you listened to this and didn't see it, go check it out. Again, biggest screen that you can find it, because it's an incredible watch in terms of just scope. So let's get into my favorite segment of the show, Aaron's Arcade.
It's time for Aaron's Arcade.
Welcome to Aaron's Arcade, brought to you by G Fuel. Whether you're a casual gamer, content creator, an everyday Joe, or an
Immortan Joe,
everyday Immortan Joe, or an esports pro, G Fuel's sugar-free, antioxidant, and vitamin-fortified, focus-enhancing, and high-performance energy products will give you the edge you need to fuel your grind. While stocking up at gfuel.com, use our code OBP at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Actually, if you use OBP this weekend, I believe it stacks with their Memorial Day weekend sale, so that's OBP
way after the fact.
At checkout.
Yes,
that's true.
But know this for 2025.
Going forward, anytime there's a weekend where you want to get some G Fuel or there's a sale going on, OBP stacks. Okay, so this week I'm talking about a book, my man. I want to tell you a little story about young little Aaron, little A.
Just little A. We didn't talk about little D.
We didn't talk about little D, but
we'll talk about little A though.
Little A was a big reader. Okay, and when he was a kid.
Little A was a bookworm?
He was total bookworm. Bookworm. And he read this book, okay, and owned this book, and then at some point lost this book and could not remember. The only thing that he remembered was that there was an ogre on the cover, that there was a boy on the cover, and one of them was holding a teddy bear, and it was in the corridor of what may have been a castle, okay? So he spent years looking for this book. Years. Okay? And the other day he's talking to his wife, and he thinks, I should look for this book again. And he Googles it, and he finds it. He even thinks about asking Reddit it. And I found it. Guess what? It's Bruce Colville's Goblins in the Castle. Bruce Colville, if you recognize that name, he did Space Brat, My Teacher is an Alien, books like that. Kids read these things all the time. You got a Scholastic book sale in your school, you probably saw Goblins in the Castle. So guess what? I found it. I bought the damn book.
Where'd you find it?
Walmart.com.
Nice.
And I went and I had to specifically find the cover that I could not get out of my brain, because I had this vision in my brain. I'm like, I remember a kid or an ogre or somebody carrying a teddy bear. And here it is. It's a fucking kid with an ogre carrying a teddy bear in a castle with goblins around him. Hence the goblins in the goddamn castle.
Did Dementus carrying around his teddy bear, did that remind you of this at all? Or did you?
It might have actually.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna read the synopsis. It says, discover this shivery treat, a funny, fantastical adventure from the best-selling author of My Teacher's an Alien and the upcoming Diary of a Mad Brownie. Okay, Toad in a Cage Castle was filled with secrets such as the hidden passages that led to every room, the long stairwell that wound down to the dungeon, and the weird creature named Igor who lived there. But it was the mysterious night noises that bothered William the most, the strange moans that drifted through the halls of the castle where he was raised. He wanted to know what caused them. Then one night, he found out. ... Okay? So, I'm going to read this book. I'm going to give you guys a synopsis later on. I'm going to let you know. It's only 161 pages. So
you could earn a free Papa John's pizza.
Really?
By earning 20 points for reading that. Just like, remember those reading, maybe the reading
the reading lists and challenge. Yeah. Summer reading lists.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. Have you ever had a book like that, Chris, that you just could not get out of your head, could not remember the title, could not remember, just maybe a vision in your brain about it?
Not a book, but a movie. So there's a horror film from when I was a kid that I used to see at my mom's friend's house. It was a VHS that he had this long list of just shitty, schlocky. That's where my love of schlocky horror came from. And there was this one movie that I always wanted to watch. My mom would never let me watch, but then one day he let me watch it when she wasn't there, which was Night of the Demons 2, which came out in 1992. And I would love to cover it as a Halloween special eventually. But yes, that cover, it has this demon vampire woman with a skull sucker in her mouth. And that image stuck into my brain as a kid. And eventually down the road as an adult, I went and found it. And now I own it on Blu-ray.
I have one like that. And it's these people drink this milk from this village. I think it's called Goblins.
Okay.
Or it's called something. I'm obviously on a Goblins kick right now. But they drank this milk and they started puking green goo.
Ugh.
And when I was a kid, that's the one that stuck. And I finally added it to my watch list on IMDb or something. But yeah, it's just a very, very schlocky, old school practical effect, summer camp looking.
Cost $10 million to make kind of movie.
Yeah. So cool, man. I'm glad. I'm excited. I look forward to talking about this book. I want to try and start talking about more books and get back into reading. I found a couple of really cool authors who I might see about bringing either on the show or at least bringing their books on the show. And we'll talk about that going forward. But I appreciate you listening to my, Aaron's Arcade. And let's go into my favorite section of the show, Chris's Corner.
It's time for Chris's Corner.
Alrighty, this week for Chris's Corner, I went and saw a new A24 film called I Saw the TV Glow, directed by Jane Schoenberg, stars Justice Smith, who you may know from Detective Pikachu, and he's done a couple things. He's done a lot of things. And Bridget Lundy Payne. Now, before I get into the summary here, Aaron, I have to tell you, I walked to this movie extremely frustrated, very angry at myself, and maybe the film a little bit too, because like most A24 films, but this on a much higher scale, it sort of leaves a lot to be interpreted. It leaves a lot for you to sort of decipher on your own. It doesn't tell you at all what this movie is supposed to be. And when I left it, I had no grasp. I could not find any through line of what anybody was trying to do in this movie. It just felt like a jumbulation of moments that sort of reminded me of what it was like to grow up in the late 90s, early 2000s, which I think is what this movie is sort of trying to discuss with its audience. So here's the summary, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So Owen is just trying to make it through life in the suburbs when his classmate introduces him to a mysterious late-night TV show called The Purple Opaque, which offers a vision of a supernatural world beneath their own. In a pale glow on the TV screen, Owen's view of reality begins to crack. So what you get here is basically Justice Smith playing this very sort of socially awkward teen who, without spoilers, sort of later hinted that he may have some sort of mental condition, who sort of latches on to this TV show from the 2000s that's very, I would say, very like Buffy or like Disney Channel, sort of a young adults supernatural show. I'm trying to think of an exact comparison.
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Are You Afraid of the Dark is an example. Yeah, exactly. And what it sort of discusses, I think, is sort of our attachment to nostalgia and sort of how rose-colored glasses and how like youth can trick us in ways. And I think it has a lot of elements that I sort of, there's a lot to chew on, I guess is my best way of saying this. I was sort of spinning my wheels trying to figure out how I wanted to showcase my views on I Saw the TV Glow. I think it's something that people should watch. I saw it with like 4 people. It was like me and 2 other white dudes in the middle of the day on a Saturday to go see it. This is the first movie that I saw post my first session of chemo. So I wanted to go out and see a movie, and I saw this, and it just frustrated me to no end. And I really had to sort of decipher what I thought of this. I think one of the more frustrating parts about this movie is that while I think it would reward upon rewatch, it is not a movie that you want to watch multiple times. Like most A24 films, it is very bleak. It is very angry in certain instances. It has a lot to sort of discuss with the audience in terms of like hard subjects, but the imagery is incredible. The acting is great. I think this is going to be one of the most polarizing films of the year. And I would really love for people to go out, seek this out at some point. I think it'll be on Max eventually. I would love to hear people's thoughts on it because this is something that 10 people could watch and 10 people could get different things from.
I've been wanting to watch it.
Yeah, I saw the TV Glow. And again, it's currently in theaters. I would imagine that it has a very small release window because a lot of smaller A24 films do. So check this one out. Yeah. And that'll do it for Chris's Corner. So
is it one that you need to see in theater?
Not necessarily. I think it's got a lot of great visuals and it has like the cinematography is incredible, but I don't think it's not something that you definitely have to go see in theaters in the same way that like Furiosa, you have to see in theaters. I think you could definitely see it at home. It may even enhance it at home so you could pause it and think about it or discuss it with someone or what have you. So that'll do it for Chris's Corner. And that'll do it for episode 157 of the Oblivion Bar podcast. Aaron, next week on the show, we are joined by the legendary artist Michael Avon Oeming to talk about his brand new Dark Horse series, William of Newbury. And this is an anthropomorphic raccoon that is like a raccoon that is sort of a knight in a way. We've only read the first issue, Aaron. We actually have not talked to Michael quite yet, but I'm excited to sit down with him and talk about all things comics and all things about William of Newbury. So that'll be episode 157. That'll be episode 158. Aaron, go and take us out of here.
Okay, so subscribe to our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. That's where we are. Your favorite podcast. That's where we are. Find us. Thank you to our patrons, Alex, Alice, Aaron, Botter from Shortbox, Brad B, Cassidy, Chris from the Bada Boom Pod, Chris J, Christy, Danny, David, Elliot, George, Greg from the First Issue Club, Haley, Ham6, Jake from Spectales, Jake S, Jeremy, Kenny, Kyle, Losi, Mac, Miles, Mike, Robert, Sean from I Used to Like This One, Travis, and Brad and Lisa from Comic Book Couples Counseling. We love you guys. Thank you so much. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads at Oblivion Bar Pod. Thank you, Omnibus, for sponsoring the show. Use the link in our show notes to upgrade how you read your comic books digitally. Official merch of the show can be found at our website, oblivionbarpodcast.com. Thank you, Kevin Ziegler, for all of our Oblivion Bar art. He's at the Zig Zone on Instagram. Thank you, Dream Kid, for all of our musical themes. Thank you, DJ Skyvac, for our grid theme. Thank you, Fantasy Shop, for sponsoring the show. Don't forget to tip your bartenders 20% or more. And that's it.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. I like it. Alrighty. Everybody, we will see you next week for episode 158.